everyone. Welcome to episode 101 of the Homegames podcast. I'm Yazeed, and this is Joseph.
Hello, I'm Joseph, and today is Saturday, February 12th, 2022. Last time we talked about the pull request that I had put up for the reorganization of Squisher, our game engine. We also talked a little bit about the cost of our AWS infrastructure a little bit. I don't know if we have any follow-up on that, but I just mentioned it as we talked about this last time. And also talked about redoing my schema for games and game versions in DynamoDB for all of the publishing and game listing stuff. So I'll have some more to talk about that. Yazeed, did you have any follow-up on any of that stuff before you get into your topics? Or are your topics directly related to those things?
My topics are directly related to one of those things, which is the big PR for Squish.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I'm going to put out my PR into that PR so you can take a look at it. Mostly, like I said last time, it's just a couple of refactoring things. But unrelated to that, I actually found something that I wanted to ask you about. While reading through, set interval documentation, this is, completely unrelated to working on home game stuff. I found this through work stuff, basically. But I didn't know this, but in the, what is it? The MSDN? No.
MDN?
The Firefox docs of JavaScript functionality.
Mozilla Developer Network, I think.
Yeah, thank you, MDN. They were talking about that set interval and set timeout. When they're deeply nested, browsers will put a floor in as the minimum of 4 milliseconds. And I just wasn't sure if maybe we should think about doing something like that too for the way that we handle our timeouts and intervals. And just kind of put a floor in of maybe 4 milliseconds or so, just standardized floor. So even if you pushed your number below that, it can't actually.
When you say, what was the word that you used? You said used a specific word, but anyway,
floor?
Yeah, but anyway, basically. Maybe if we wanted to add an interface on top of the set interval and set timeout stuff, which we kind of do. We have a Homegames set interval because we don't expose the global set timeout stuff for probably a good reason that I'm forgetting at the moment. But
it's so we can close
yes,
this out.
Yeah, you're right. So we can manage when those things are closed. Yeah, so I mean, we could definitely do that. I guess I don't really see that much of a benefit, because if we say, hey, you can make this 1 millisecond just like you can in the standard set timeout call, it'll fuck you. And hey, that should be our motto. Home games, you can go fuck yourself. You have the freedom,
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe, I think realistically someone setting that value to something less than what their game runs at, their tick rate. If their game is running at 60 or 100 updates a second and they want this separate timeout interval to be faster than that, it's kind of a sign that something weird is happening. But, I'm kind of okay with letting people fuck themselves.
Okay. Yeah, I just was curious. From what I understand, it's mostly around how the browsers do that. And they don't do it on you can do tick rates below 4 milliseconds. You can do intervals below 4 millisecond delays, basically. It's when you get deeper into nested. So I think it's after the 5th layer of nesting, that tick rate can't be below 4 milliseconds.
That's what I meant. So you said the nesting stuff. So what does that mean? Does that mean that a function calls a function, and each of those has a set timeout in it? Or what's
God, I don't remember now. It might be that, or it might be that a timeout calls a timeout, calls a timeout, calls a timeout, calls a timeout kind of deal. But my thinking was maybe we don't worry about looking for how deeply nested something is, and we just say set timeout, set interval. There's a minimum time on both of those, and it's this. And so even if it goes below that value, there's a floor that we insist on. Mostly, I was thinking about that for what you were saying about the tick rate, is that we kind of enforce that it can't be less than the tick rate. Because I don't. Like you were saying, why would you do that? There isn't a functional difference to it. yeah, I don't know. That was just like my thinking on there, but I wanted to get your thoughts on it. I was going to leave that as a note on the PR, but then I was like, oh, I should bring this up and we maybe want to talk about this as well.
But also, if it's only affecting the browser, I mean, those timeouts are running on the server, in the node stuff. So there might be different restrictions or whatever and different complexity for that stuff on the server side. But, I don't really think enforcing anything beyond like this doesn't like literally doesn't work. Like if you try to call a function with arguments that don't exist, like obviously it doesn't work, and you should enforce some sort of a checking around that. But I would say if it's allowed in the standard library, we should just allow it. If they say 1 millisecond, then 1 millisecond, and if it's something that's where someone's trying to learn, I think that's where I'm coming from for this particular thing, is if you're trying to see it from someone who's just trying to learn, and they say, oh, set millisecond or set timeout, it'll run after this amount of time. I'm going to do it for 1 millisecond for whatever bum ass reason they have a 1 millisecond timeout. They're making a mistake, but you should let them make that mistake instead of trying to fix that mistake and say, oh, okay, well, they set timeout to 1 millisecond. That's bad. We should set it to 20 minimum. And then their shit works because they have some sort of race condition or something weird in their code. And they think, oh, well, I'll set this timeout and then just do this after. And then it kind of works. And then they don't really get better, And it's because we tried to add like guardrails where I don't think we should really have them. As long as our system is safe against people's fuck ups, we don't need to protect them.
I see. Would you think maybe like instead of just enforcing a floor without people realizing, is to like maybe throw an exception to just be like, that's below our minimum floor. Your tick rate should be equal to or greater than your interval.
Yeah, I guess we could do that, but then that same person from before would say, oh, well, I'll make my tick rate every millisecond, right? Like I'll just update my game 1,000 times a second. And maybe it's only the way I'm seeing it because I don't really know what the Homegames developer, the standard Homegames developer looks like quite yet. But in my head, if you're learning through this system, I just really think letting you do the wrong thing is more helpful than trying to protect you from doing the wrong thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I got you. Okay.
At least in this case.
Makes sense to me.
At least in this case, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like for the most part, you're against guardrails for people, and you'd rather them just learn as close to vanilla JavaScript as possible for this. And I kind of agree with that. So it makes sense. The only reason I was thinking about it in this regard was because it seems kind of standard, but that's on the browser side anyway. I don't even think the server is limited at all. So
yeah, I'm sure it's just whatever. I'm sure it's just as fast as it'll allow the event loop or whatever to go. I don't really know anything about anything, but yeah, I guess that's just it. Did you have anything else about the pull request? Like anything that surprised you or stuff that you thought was missing or stuff that sucked?
I don't think anything sucked. I do think that, and this is one of the changes that are going to come in my PR into your PR, is I would rather us pull out and make helper functions and files for things. So like, let's see, like in like the squish.js file, you have that like big object that's like, if it's an ID, then this is how you squish, this is how you unsquish, and here's the type for it. I pull those out into like their own individual functions, and then in the squish file, I just bring them in, and then I'm like ID points to this ID function. I don't remember the other ones, but like they just like point to those functions. So the rest of the code functions the same way, but it shrinks the file from like, I think it was like 600 lines down to like maybe like 100 lines or something like that. Yeah. And just like individual helper files so that we can, in a folder, so we can always just like add or edit those ones as we need to. And we can also test them independently. We don't have to worry about like grabbing the whole squish file and like that piece individually. We can just grab that function, make sure it squishes and unsquishes so we want it to, and call it a day. Yeah,
that works. I guess the mapping that we have now is kind of a mix of configuration, because the configuration is kind of the definition of what is squishable, like what is in the game node spec, I guess. And theoretically we could have different versions of that where we have like an internal serialization and external serialization type thing, but we don't. So whatever, but at its core it still is kind of a configuration, so mixing that with logic is just generally not the best. So yeah, what you said totally makes sense, to kind of have the mapping of stuff separate from the actual stuff that's being mapped, which makes sense to me.
Yeah, that's like really the only thing, and like I said, I really liked this version of Squish more than any previous iteration of Squish. So it looked really good.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I'm glad it's an improvement. I haven't really touched that stuff since I put up the initial pull request. I'll talk about it later, but basically I had another branch based on top of that stuff that I was using to kind of add the search and all that kind of stuff into the Homegames dashboard. And for a few reasons that became very shitty, and so I'll kind of hold off on all that code that I wrote until you have your pull request up, and then we get that merged, and then I can kind of go back to what I was doing before. But what I've been doing over the past couple of weeks was the schema updates for our game tables and our game version stuff. Sorry, let me mute my phone. So basically I had started, like I had just said, taking the code, the Homegames dashboard code that I had kind of restructured, and adding like a search bar to the top, and adding some basic search functionality with some mock data, so I can create some fake games, test 1, test 2, go into the Homegames dashboard, search test 1, test 2, or the author name, and get them to come up on my screen. And basically, for reasons that I don't need to go into right here, the Homegames dashboard stuff as it is needs to be restructured to allow me to do that easily without duplicating a bunch of code. So that'll be a thing for later, but in the meantime, I'm just trying to work on the service part and the actual database and the accessing the database and reads and writes and stuff. So a good way to test that is the catalog that I mentioned probably a few months ago at this point, but here's every game that we have available in Homegames, kind of prettied up in this old school type, Sears catalog type thing, but for games, and kind of having this listing with authors and, just a way to feature that kind of stuff and put it front and center for people to discover what we have available. And so since my idea for that was always for the catalog part of our Homegames.io website, and for the Homegames dashboard that searches and lists games to basically be pulling from the same database using the same APIs. So it's kind of a parallel experience, from the searching games when you first learn about Homegames and you see what we have, and then when you're actually playing them and you're able to, run them. So anyway, all that is to say that I'm building the catalog part of the website at the moment based around all this new restructured API stuff. And I also added images to games. So part of my weekends up to this point has been spent processing images in Node, which has been kind of a pain in the ass, but whatever, not that bad. Just a few hours of that kind of stuff to allow people to upload thumbnails. We put them in S3 and then reference them for the game data. And so anyway, like I said, I have the skeleton page for the catalog, and hopefully that starts to look better over the next couple weeks as I add styling to it, because there is none at the moment and it looks like dog shit, and the images don't load. And the images that do load are test images, so the whole page is a fucking nightmare. But it's going, and I'm building the APIs, and they're working pretty well. The schema is looking pretty good. I don't know if it's final at this point, but it's been, everything that I kind of think I need from a UI perspective has been available in the data. So I don't want to talk too much about that until I have it done, but I'm updating that stuff. Also, Homegames.io, like the existing website with the existing game listing and stuff, is probably broken as hell at the moment because I've just been updating Landlord, the service, like in prod. Like I develop in prod. I just open up a Vim session in the EC2 instance and then just, let it fly. So I'll need to stop doing that at some point. But, right now it's fine. Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to that you mentioned that work on this stuff in Node is kind of a pain. Would it make sense to maybe spin up a service? I was thinking of this kind of recently, but like maybe spinning up a service that leverages like a Python environment, basically, that handles like images for us. And the reason I was bringing that up is because when we were talking about like the views, basically, and how like we'd have to like slice up images to do that.
Yeah.
I feel like it might be easier to do that in Python. I feel like Python image manipulation is a little bit easier, a little bit more mature than JavaScript image manipulation. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but like if that would help with what you're doing now too.
Maybe. I think I've used a couple Python image libraries before, and they were pretty easy. I believe I found some for Node as well. So maybe they're more now. I haven't checked in a couple years, but yeah, I guess I really haven't given much thought to the slicing stuff beyond just the initial investigation I did, where it's like, oh, this might be hard, and that whole kind of thing. It'd be nice if we could do. I guess I would need to know what our image slicing mechanism looks like overall, because if it's a thing happening on the client side, like you download Homegames and there's some sort of component in there that slices images after they've been received like in full, then adding Python to that sounds hard as hell, because we have everything in one big node executable now. So unless we have like node to Python bindings or something like that, or some sort of interface between the two, just having a whole other like Python runtime included just sounds like a lot just to get like that one utility. So I don't really know if we would do that, but the image stuff I was talking about for this, like I'm not actually processing images, the actual files, and manipulating them. I'm just getting them from a multi-part request, like, here's a file, here's a key, here's a value type thing in an upload. And it was just a pain in the ass to get that, because you need a library basically to parse that multi-part form upload, which I just hate. It's like, give me a standard thing that just lets me easily do this. And there is a module in Node called query string, which will technically parse the form upload, but it won't give you like, object.value or object.key type syntax like you would in an actual object. So anyway, yeah, it was just a pain in the ass to get that working. But once I got it and like the S3 upload stuff, it was totally fine. I had some fancy shit in there that I had totally forgotten about, because I had written the guts for like the Homegames asset service that people need to use to upload, whatever MP3s or images or whatever they have associated to their games. And so I wrote this code a long time ago, so I'm guessing why I did it, but I'm thinking it's because the AWS command line interface allows you to just upload with S3. And I don't think they allow you to upload asynchronously. Like, I don't think that you can do a thing where you say, like S3 upload file and then return a response right now. Or maybe you can't. I don't know. Anyway, the whole point is I'm trying to upload images asynchronously. I don't want to go too technical or whatever, but I'm trying to make it so someone gives me a file. There's that time that's spent from the upload of the file from the client over the network to the server, and then it kind of stores it in full in a temporary space on its disk, and then it accesses that file locally to upload to S3. So it kind of uploads twice, right? Like once to my server, once to S3. And so to make those requests faster, I basically just take the file. Once I have it on the server, I tell you, hey, cool, it'll be available at this ID. Very optimistically says that, because I could still fail at this point, and then you can check that ID, and then there's no image. But yeah, it does that, and then it'll just start another process in the background to actually upload the image. So I had to do some fancy shit with that for the thumbnail to relearn this dumbass system that I made, but it works pretty well once I relearned it, so that was nice. But yeah, I think images are kind of important for the catalog stuff specifically, and for, just game listing. Like, you need something to visually represent your game. You can't just have a name and an author.
Yeah. Makes sense. I do like that visualness, or visual breakup of just like a huge list like that would be nice.
Yeah. And it's different from the game images. Like if you have an actual published version of your game and you kind of go into a detailed view, it would be nice to see some screenshots of the game, kind of like Steam, right? But you still want to have a thumbnail, a single image for your thing that's your icon or whatever.
Yeah, that's true. Also pretty dope. That'd be nice. I wonder if never mind. That wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't wondering anything.
Okay. Yeah, and then I have a note here on the notes about testing, just how hard it is, I think, to test these services. Like I mentioned, I literally SSH into an EC2 instance, open up a Vim session, and write landlord service code just on the machine itself, and then build and deploy from a set of scripts I think I only have on that machine. So it's just rough in general, and it's one of those things where if I just took an afternoon to make all that stuff right, it would save me so much time in the long run. But in the short term, I just don't want to do it. And it's like, this works now, so I'm just actively making a wrong decision and living with it, which sounds like me. So anyway, I'm going to keep doing that for a little bit until I kind of get the services where they need to be. But at some point I need to kind of get a handle on all of our microservices, and like I've said this before, but the way they're deployed, and just making sure that my scripts are available and they work, and it's not just me doing a bunch of special Joseph stuff. It's like something that can actually be learned, a process, instead of just crazy shit. Yeah. And yeah, I also have a note here about testing the stuff that I'm doing, basically by just building a whole new feature instead of trying to build tests around an API. I would rather build the feature that will use that API, and then in the process of testing that feature, test them both, which is a kind of like a rookie programmer mistake. Like, it is a mistake I'm definitely willingly making, because it's harder to diagnose problems in a system when they're both unfinished, or when two pieces of the system are unfinished. So it's hard to know like what part of it is fucked. But anyway, that's what I've been doing with that, just kind of testing with the catalog service, like I said, instead of trying to test with the Homegames dashboard, because I just need to let that be finished before I go back and touch the code again and restructure it to what it needs to be. Yeah. Oh, shit. Okay, I have a note here about the catalog. Okay, so you mentioned last episode that it might be beneficial to have a cache, an in-memory cache for we talked about how AWS is expensive and my DynamoDB table costs money, and scans are generally bad, right, for listing games. So basically, because I'm building this catalog, I need those scans. And so a little Yazeed popped into my head when I was implementing this morning. It was like, use a cache. What about a cache? And so I scan the database, get all the games in one big request. I keep it in an in-memory cache, just very simple. Like, it keeps a timestamp and it keeps a value. And if the timestamp is more than 5 minutes ago, when someone requests it, it'll fetch the DB instead of the cache. Very, very simple. And I have 2 instances of the service running at a given time. So that means that I have 2 caches to warm up, basically. So you can technically hit the DB twice with 2 requests. But anyway, we have that, and the APIs are pretty much there. Still a little, I don't know what the word is, but basically if you read the code, you could be like, oh, I'll break this. Like, I know what to upload to break this. Like, kind of fragile. So... yeah, anyway, the catalog is going. The Homegames website changes are going. I don't think I'll have those done until everything is done. Like, I need Pico de Gallo, the demo, to be up and running and solid again before I can link that on the website. I need the catalog to be obviously up and running before I have the catalog page on the website. And all that kind of stuff. I also want to mention, this is another bullet point I have later, but I'm going to go to it now. The bullet point is just Joe Rogan. So I don't know if you've been following what's been happening with Joe Rogan over the past few weeks. There's like political stuff to it, which I don't want to get into, but essentially Joe Rogan has had his some of his episodes of his podcast removed from Spotify. He claims it's because they're so offensive and so bad or whatever, and he agrees or whatever the hell. But basically, Spotify has some sort of power and control over his catalog. And as a personal thing, I hate the idea that Spotify has control over what podcasts I can listen to or what music I can listen to and stuff like that. So I've mentioned this a long time ago, but I want to have a page on our website which is just our podcast, like direct MP3 downloads. And it's not because I'm out here saying the N-word like Joe Rogan was.
Oh my God, he was?
Yeah. There's a whole thing. There's a whole thing. It's not that I ever think that this podcast will be that. It's not that I ever think that we're going to say anything that I think realistically will cause like an uproar or need to be whatever. But I don't think anything should ever be shut down like that and whatever. Whatever. It's a whole thing. All this is to say, I think we should store MP3s of our podcast, host them on our website, and have a podcast downloads page on our website outside of all the streaming services, just for the remaining psychos on Earth who download MP3s like me, because we're afraid of the government. So I wanted to ask if you had any thoughts on the Joe Rogan debacle, but if you don't know about what's going on, then that's okay.
I did not know he said the N-word. That's crazy. No, I don't have any thoughts. I don't think either of us have said the N-word, but yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, I just wanted to mention that as part of the website kind of changes, I guess, that I'll have before we launch. Like I said, we'll have the demo linked, we'll have the catalog, and we'll have some cleanup just generally across the board. But I would like to have our podcasts listed. Also just for the preservation type stuff, it's like, I just think it's, I don't know, having the files out there is cool to me. So, one kind of technical bullet point I had here was just kind of a follow up on the views stuff that I had mentioned before. And it was kind of just an incompatibility with searching in the Homegames dashboard. It's basically the problem that I ran into that I mentioned when I was first starting to set up search for the Homegames dashboard and like how I needed to restructure it. Basically, the problem is when I designed the view stuff, my whole premise was that the data is shared, right? Like this is a list of games that people are viewing. There's kind of like a public list of games that we all kind of look into. We can see a part of the overall list, but the list is the list. It doesn't change. This is different from you searching something. If you search something, you're basically getting a custom list, right? Like, because the list is physically kind of structured over here for people to look into with these views, you can't physically restructure that list to match your search results because it's everybody's list. Everybody's looking at that list. And so you don't want to do that, but you also can't really make your own somewhere else, right? Like you can't do views and have a search list because it's like, okay, well, the real list is over here. Yazeed's search list is over in that other room, so let's just make a fake room with the fake list and then move Yazeed's view over to this fake custom list and fill up this room with other lists just for special people and their search results. It kind of goes against this entire point of the view in general. And so I have kind of a hacky, shitty thing where I take kind of like the view box that someone has, which is the default of what they look at when they scroll through games, right? Like there's some kind of static elements around the screen, and then there's one dynamic box in the middle that has the game list, and you can kind of click through. So the fix is basically to take another separate static element and layer it over their view box. So they don't have that view box anymore. Like they're not looking at the original thing. It's essentially a modal that pops up exactly over the existing content, so you don't know it's a modal. You know what I mean? It's like a shitty hack.
It's actually like shadow banning the original list. What's going on?
Exactly. Like it's perfectly layering over the existing box with different data to make you to kind of make it seem like you're just looking at that other data as kind of a not really a miss, I guess, on the view stuff, because the view stuff works exactly as intended. It's just kind of a design flaw in the dashboard, which is that's why I said I need to rewrite it. So once we get this thing of changes out where it's talking to all the new structured engine stuff, then I can go through and just kind of clean it up to make it more suitable for searching. But yeah, shadow banning the original version is a pretty good explanation. Okay, my last bullet point here is.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Can I? This is like 4 bullet points ago, but the caching stuff.
Oh yeah.
One, I don't remember at all bringing that up, so that's cool.
Oh. Nice.
But also, is there any like verbiage? There we go. Is there any like verbiage around how long things will take then? Because like if I upload something and it takes like 5 minutes for it to get into the original cache, like into one of the 2 caches, we probably want verbiage around there being like, hey, it could take up to like, this amount of time before that shows up. Is that built into it or not yet?
No, I mean I can go and add that to the web page, just next to the create game button, be like, hey, there might be a 5-minute delay for the cache to refresh or whatever. Or what I could do is no, this wouldn't work reliably. What I was going to say is what I could do is reset the cache when someone does a write. But I can only guarantee that I can reset the cache on that one instance of the task. But like I mentioned, there's 2 at the moment, and in any case where there's more than one, this wouldn't work. Where like we invalidate from the write method because again, it only exists in that one. It's not a shared memory cache. So if we had like Redis or something like that, I guess we could. But at that point, we would have Elasticsearch for our search cluster. We wouldn't need to have like a fancy cache for the Dynamo results. We would just have them already going to a separate system that we can search in immediately.
Okay. Yeah. I got you. I just figured like as people start to use it, maybe that verbiage would be helpful for them.
Yeah, definitely. There's Thank you. I imagine there will be a phase of just polish, like from May to June, because at the moment I'm just kind of blasting through shit and trying to, just make sure it's all there and working and stuff, and dealing with kind of rough edges and confusing bullshit ass code every now and then in the services, at least, because the services are where I just have free reign to totally fuck myself. The Homegames code that people actually are gonna review and read and look at because it's important is the stuff that you also work on and review, but the services I just go nuts. So
oh no, I know in the future at some point it's gonna be like, hey, we need someone else to look at this too, and I'm gonna read it and be like, what in tarnation is going on?
They're much better than they used to be, but they're still just it's abstract at points. So
it's abstract art. I get it.
Yeah, so basically, like I said earlier, that's kind of also why it's a shitty way to build and deploy those services, because I just go nuts. Like I just freeball it basically every time I touch any of the services, because it's the part I hate the most. It's the part I don't like doing. So I just kind of sit down and black out and see what happens at the end of it, Mm-hmm. Kind of like you with the podcast. Yeah.
That is no joke how I record this podcast. I didn't even remember I brought up a cache that was like apparently important.
Yeah, I think because I was just talking about how expensive the scan operation was, and you suggested just a simple memory cache, and I was like, oh yeah, I mean probably, but that's fucking stupid. And then here I am doing it like 2 weeks later. Or a month later, I guess.
It still is stupid, but it was the right kind of stupid for us.
It actually is a terrible idea, the way that I've done it. Not this idea that you suggested. The way that I've implemented it. Because like I said, the single instance limitation thing is just dumb. It's just a way. It's a quick Band-Aid for us to reduce the number of scans in case. Part of the problem and one of the benefits of the transparency of this stuff, of like, hey, this is our infrastructure. This is our code base. These are my flaws as a human being and the things that I fail to think about, like letting people see that is a hurtful thing, in the sense that someone can just see that you're making a scan every time you hit this page, this unauthenticated page, and just hammer it with refreshes to run up your bill. It's like, it's a good thing for me actually, because it forces me to make it better, because if someone can see the flaw like out in the open, then it's more of an incentive for me to fix it. I'm trying to see the positive of it, but the end result is, like I said, we're going to need to go back and polish stuff, where I'm trying to have everything just done, and then from May to June just making sure that the language makes sense, that it's easy to understand, and messaging is clear, and all that kind of stuff. Just trying to make it as easy as possible to get into, and solid as fuck. So we'll get there, hopefully.
I believe.
Yeah,
we'll get there.
Yeah, but it's nice. I see the thing though. Like, I have the stuff on the board behind me, but the list is actually getting reasonable of what I think we actually need to finish before June. So, we're getting there.
Hey, let's go. Did you cover the roadmap is hilarious at this point?
Yeah, I was just gonna mention that. So my last bullet point is that when I was going through the website, I clicked the roadmap that I had written, I think in October or September, and was just looking at what I wrote. Almost every single thing in there is either wrong or off by months. Like, one of the goals was October 2021, have TypeScriptification of all the Homegames core components. It's like, okay, well, we might have that end of February. Maybe we might have that end mid-March, And then the other stuff where it's just like whatever services and saves and metadata services. Like, no, we're not doing that shit this year at all. Like, I would love to build a game save metadata service, and I think I still might, maybe at the end of this year, but there's no way I'm doing that before June, anything like that. We need to have it working before I can think about anything extra. And that kind of leads into why I have this bullet point, which is beta here. Like, what would you say if it was a beta launch in June, where it's like, hey guys, check it out, we got some bugs, but this is a release. Like, this is feature complete, rough Homegames, as opposed to here's feature complete, final 1.0, hit them with the 0.80, the 0.96.
Yeah. I think having a beta would go a long way of tightening up language, because I think one of the problems we're run into is that you and I are quite similar. So if you write something, I'll read it and be like, I know what Joseph means, and I'll just move on. And if I write something, I imagine you'll do the same thing. Even if we're trying to look at it with like a critical eye, we might just let things go. I think putting it in beta, letting other people who aren't you or me look at it, will probably go a long way of like tightening up language. And maybe just if there's like visual stuff that would help with like making everything just more accessible, I think that would go a long way. Yeah. So I do think like having a beta would be valuable.
It's also, in a way, it's kind of marketing. Where I was thinking, like, I don't know if you're familiar. I think we talked about this with Clubhouse, the app Clubhouse. I mentioned this like months and months ago. I think maybe it was off the podcast, but at this point, whatever. Basically, Clubhouse, I think, got cool in the beginning because it was, oh, by the way, Clubhouse is an app that basically lets you have chat rooms. Like, you join groups and people are on the app at the moment, and you join them, but it's like literal voice chat rooms, and there's people can control who's speaking, and there's an audience and stuff like that, and it's all live. It's pretty cool. But our friend Brandon invited me to the app like a year ago after I had kind of been hearing about it on the Joe Budden podcast, who's a famous rapper, famous dude. And so hearing celebrities talk about this app, and then getting an invite from my friend for the super secret cool app that you could talk, like, it felt cool, the invite aspect. And you just know that that's all marketing and bullshit. And it's like, well, you get 2 invites every time that you sign, or like you get someone to sign up or whatever. So it's just a big way to get people to sign up. But I do think it'd be cool if we did something where it's like, I don't know, but we'd have to demand, we'd have to generate hype, generate demand. So we couldn't do some sort of like a viral marketing campaign. What I was gonna say is go around downtown Tucson and like put up stickers, and it's like a QR code, and then it goes to the website, and then it's like a fucking, you get like a fucking NFT or some shit, like some wild ass, like cool ass thing. But then it's but we don't. There's no one would care. You would walk by, you'd see that thing, you'd just be like, oh, I don't know what the fuck this is. I'm not a nerd. Yeah, fuck it. So I don't really know how marketing or whatever looks for us, but the idea of a beta, I do think, makes it cooler. Everybody wants to join a beta.
Yeah, I think maybe for us it would be doing stuff like going to like like the game jam or game dev things we talked about at one time, that one of our friends goes to pretty regularly, and maybe just asking them if they'll beta it for us and just seeing what they have to say about it.
But you've met us. We're the most like uncomfortable weirdos. We couldn't go to a physical thing and be like, "Hey guys," or even the Discord channel and be like, "Hey guys." You have to kind of build a rapport with people. And I don't know anybody.
Yeah, that is true. We don't have much goodwill. Yeah. Damn.
That's why go ahead.
And I don't have anything. That was the end of my statement.
Well, it's like I get this weird feeling when I want to go to Reddit. I mean, I don't really, like I've said before, but I don't sign in when I browse Reddit just because I don't like being on it so much. So I don't like seeing all of my subreddits. I just see the popular stuff. But I don't really like posting in the JavaScript or programming communities because as a person, like as a software engineer, professional human man, I wake up every day and I feel pretty okay about myself. Like I'm pretty comfortable with my skill set. I like where I'm at in life and whatever. I'm okay with it. But in my head, everybody who is on the JavaScript subreddit or on Hacker News is like a fucking 8 published novel PhD with like a 30-inch dick. You know what I mean? And it's just like the gatekeeper of programming. And I can't post anything about like feedback because they'll just shit on me like, oh, JavaScript is slow compared to C++, and you could be using Rust for this or whatever the fuck, Like I don't want it. Yeah. I don't know. I have a hard time seeing us like talking to legitimate engineers to be like, hey, check out this thing that we spent 4 years on. It's kind of the most important thing in my whole life.
Yeah. Public relations and public speaking I don't think either are strong suits.
Yeah. So we have a podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
yeah, I don't know. That's gonna be tough, I think. But I do think if we could get people into the beta, or at least just people that aren't us to look at stuff and like really give it a go, I think that would go a long way. Because damn, are you and I, we've been in it. We know the language that we've been using for a long time now, and people coming in might just be lost in the weeds. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to like get stuck in a certain way of doing things and then think that that's the way that we have to communicate it to people or whatever. Because if we show it to someone else and they're like, oh, this is basically and then they come up with a perfect description of what we're trying to build. It's like, oh shit, you want to be our head of PR? It's like, because we don't know what the fuck we're doing. We think about this in a very specific way. And so, I don't know. We'll figure it out. But I don't really know how the beta stuff would look. In my head, it's really just we work on this until we call it done. And in my head, it'd be nice to get a big red button, like a physical, literal big red button, and just wire it up so it hits post on a certain tweet or something where you and I and Synovia and maybe like a pound of weed, we all hit the button, and like celebrate when it comes out. And like it posts a tweet or whatever. It's like, it's live or something. And then in that scenario, it's someone can go download and play something that day with their friends. They can play something like in that moment and see what it is and get a good demonstration of our technical capabilities. And then that same person, if they're technically able or if they're interested or whatever, can then go and see, how do I make something for this? And just try to foster that or whatever as much as we possibly can. Like, and see where it goes.
Yeah, for sure. I'm interested to see how that all plays out. So
Yeah. It's
maybe the big red button idea is the way to go.
Yeah, to me that sounds fun. I'm sure it'd be easy, right, to just get like a big red button. I'm sure they have those, like a USB big red button that you can program to do something. If not,
I don't know.
If not, we should pivot. We should make that product and become millionaires, and then use that to fund home games.
Yeah, and then we fund the viral. Yeah, because then people will be like, "Oh, those are the guys who made the big button, the big red button," and we're like, "Not only did we do that, for years we've been slaving away in secrecy, and we came up with Homegames
in not so secrecy or in secrecy, whatever." Yeah, this every 2-week podcast, basically a secret. The internet's best kept secret. Homegames IO. All right.
It's true.
I don't really have any other notes. Just we got some support form messages. So the woman who was emailing us and saying that we were charging her money, and she was in all caps demanding that we stop, I think she found out that wasn't us, and so she stopped messaging us, or at least we haven't seen her in a while. So hopefully she got that all figured out. We got 2 messages this week on Wednesday, which I guess was, what is that, like the 8th, 9th? I don't know. Like within a couple minutes of each other. So I'm thinking these are the same person. They were anonymous. They did not leave an email address or name. The first one was Con Love, like KHAN Love. Your guess is as good as mine as to what this person was intending with this message. They sent another one immediately after, or someone sent another one immediately after, saying, "I love arts." This one I had a little bit more of a deep dive into, where I was thinking, what if they were trying to write "I love farts"? You know what I mean? Like some people would write that. Like our friends, my brother-in-law in particular, he would definitely write that. I think he's written that on our whiteboard in the house here before. So I was just trying to think of the intent of this "I love arts," or maybe they really just truly see the vision of Homegames, and so they're like, this is going to be the next Rome or whatever, the heart of culture moving forward.
Yeah, they're like, this is the next cultural phenomenon. Homegames. I don't know. Thank you for the messages, though.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate them.
Anonymous person. We also love arts.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I look at arts and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. It's all right.
Yeah, sometimes I prefer a craft. Whatever happened to arts and crafts?
Did you ever make macaroni art when you were a kid?
I think I did. Yeah, a couple times. Just like shitty. They're kind of loose with it though. They don't really make anything or look like anything. But I think they're still in my nana's house.
Oh, okay. I don't think I ever made one. I don't think I've ever done crafts at school, or at least I don't remember it. But I'm also not a reliable narrator of my own life, so
we need to just start recording what you do on a day-to-day basis, just so you could have memory of what you did last week. Moving forward, it feels like that'll be important.
I run a lot.
Yeah. Well, the Home Games Craft Minute can be in addition to our activities that we do as co-hosts, and one of those will be the Doom Eternal Challenge, which is something that you just came up with before we started recording. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, basically, Joseph and I don't do things together aside from this podcast and working on Home Games. So we're going to try to do something fun, and if other people want to participate, feel free. But basically, we're going to starting on the 21st of February. We're gonna every week just kind of check in to see how we've been doing on Doom Eternal, and we're capping total playtime for that week at 10 hours, so you can play up to 10 hours each week starting from the 21st, and then we just kind of like check in to see how we're doing on Doom Eternal, our progress.
So the background for this is that Yazeed is not as strong of a man as he would like to be, and he never beat he never beat Doom Eternal when it originally came out. It came out, I think, March of 2020. Holy shit, really? Yeah. That far? Wow. Time flies.
No, it had to come out last year, dude.
I really don't think so because it came out when the pandemic started, which was damn near 2 years ago. I bought the whole laptop at Best Buy here in Tucson, and then I played it here. That was before, holy shit. Anyway, it's been 2 years.
I got my dog in April of 2020, so it had to be after I got my dog.
I'm gonna Google the words Doom Eternal release date, and I'll report back. Give me just a few seconds. March 20th, 2020. So
Jesus.
Once again, I'm right. I don't know why anybody doubts me ever. I've never been wrong. But anyway, Doom Eternal came out. I beat it because I'm the GOAT. Yazeed played it and gave up. And so
I didn't give up.
He gave up. He stopped playing it because he couldn't beat it because he wasn't good enough. So back in my day, we called that giving up.
I hope that noise stays in.
But yeah, so to prove himself, Yazeed wants to compete with me, even though we all know how this is going to end. 10 hours a week, same difficulty, Doom Eternal, single player, see how far we can get. Yeah, watch Yazeed get dutied on.
I'm going to laugh really hard if I beat you through Doom Eternal.
Okay.
And I won't let you hear the end of it until I forget about it.
You might forget to play it a given week because you're so ethereal, you know. You're just so out.
No, I'll remember. I'll play my 10 hours each week. All right. I already told you my master strat. I won't spoil it for the podcast yet, but know that there'll be a master strategy.
Yeah. So basically, Yazeed's gonna play for a little bit, get frustrated, and give up, and we'll follow it live. Not really live here on the Home Games podcast.
Wow.
That's the end now. Is like just give like a radio outro.
I do like the radio outros. If we're gonna do the radio outros, though, I would like us to do the like traditional like shock jock thing where they have just like wacky noises, like the little kazoo and stuff that they use.
I bought a Stream Deck. I'm looking right at it. It's just that we didn't do in person this week, so I didn't load it up with fart sounds for us to do this because I don't think we could get it in such a way where you can hear it over Discord. I don't know. I'd have to look into it, but basically I need it so when I hit the button, we both hear it immediately, or else the impact is lost. You know, if you don't hear the farts when I do, did the fart really happen? You know, so I have this thing. We'll set it up next time we do in person, which will probably be in 2 weeks. And yeah, so I guess that'll be the thing. But for this time, thank you for listening to the podcast. We'll see you in 2 weeks. As always, our music is done by our friend Tynan. He is Nytan on Bandcamp. That is Nytan, Nytan. You can find us on Twitter at Homegames.io. We have a website, homegames.io. You can send us a message using the contact form at the bottom of the page and be like this anonymous person who loves farts.
Thank you.
We'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye-bye.